Loneliness really, really sucks. Aristotle even suggested that anyone who isn't all too worried about a life of solitude isn't actually a person, but instead is either an animal or a god. This is due to his belief that sociality and friendship is a fundamental component to being human. Because of this, he regarded loneliness as generally a state to be avoided. This aversion to loneliness is also reflected in present studies that suggest feeling lonely as a major contributor to negative well-being, as well as to greater use of health services and a negative economic impact due to its ability to decrease employee health. Regarding the last one, loneliness is estimated to have cost UK employers $2.5 billion annually. This study also found a greater prevalence in loneliness in younger demographics, especially with men. The common stereotype of the lonely old person doesn't actually hold up all too well, as loneliness appears to actually decrease with age. Of course, we are social animals. After all, there's a reason why ancient cultures would use ostracization and isolation as primary forms of torture and punishment. It should be noted, however, that existentialism takes a slightly different view regarding loneliness. Instead of it being seen as a separate and disciplinary state, they see it as a fundamental component to being human. Think about it. You come into this world alone, travel through life pretty much by yourself, save for a brief moment of genuine human connection or two, and then you die alone. And what a cruel ending it is for any member of our eusocial species, writes McAdams, defining eusocial to mean complex social actors. As the final insult, we must leave the social world, the group, wherein we first expressed our psychological individuality. We began life as social actors, performing in the group, relentlessly social until the last moment. We die alone. Sartre believes in an epistemic loneliness, caused by a paradox between our consciousness desiring meaning and the isolation and nothingness of the world in which we inhabit. This in turn causes us to engage with other humans, similarly trapped in a lonely metaphysical existence. When we're cut from this engagement, that is true loneliness. In a sense, we were alone all along, even when in the presence of others, knowing all too well that no one can understand us better than ourselves. Few thinkers have given greater thought to the issue of interacting with each other than Martin Buber. In I and Thou, Buber argues that existence for us is, at its most basic, interpersonal. We aren't solitary creatures floating around unaffected by others. Instead, we exist in a complex world full of shifting relationships and interactions. Life itself, he argues, is defined by such tumultuous interaction, the conflict of intersubjectivity. Through this, Buber proposes that there are two types of being: the I-it and I-thou. In the former, we approach another individual as if they were an object or instrument. We see the person as a means to an end. In this sense, we fail to engage with the person in their entirety. In the I-thou approach, we encounter the other, creating a reciprocal interaction in which each individual recognizes the other's subjectivity. Here we develop what Buber calls the between, a space where cohabitation, intimacy, and understanding occur. This is where life is. Like Aristotle, Buber argues that someone who lives solely as an I-it, or even an I, is not truly a person. To be a person is to be experienced by others and to experience others. How does Buber resolve the problem that we can't always live in some sort of utopian I-thou state for all of our lives? That at times we will inevitably find ourselves drunk and alone in our apartment, eating a tub of ice cream in the glow of our laptop monitor. Buber makes the case that it would be far better to live with the rule of thou over the rule of I. That is, to have primary concern and vested interest in others over an attentive preoccupation with our own recognition. This isn't easy. As Mark Kingwell notes, one reason people find breakups and still more close deaths so unsettling and depressing is that they lose at a stroke a person with whom they have become used to planning their diversions, whatever those may be. A future is lost, and so a sense of wholeness or identity, however flimsy and variable. How could one find the strength to love everyone else when no one will even give them a chance? Or even worse, who had at once felt some refuge from solitude, only to have such salvation ripped from them in a single tragic moment? Buber doesn't suggest that such a task is at all possible, but in the attempt to do so, we ever so briefly escape from the naive belief that we can rid ourselves of loneliness. In the end, loneliness is our lifelong companion, so we might as well get used to it and hopefully reach some form of acceptance. Kingwell later writes, "You cannot be happy alone and you cannot be happy together. Mourning mourns the loss of a possible future. The not yet that now will never be. Everything ends, including you. Love is not eternal, it is not even hearty. Accepting this takes a form and amount of courage that nobody but you will see or appreciate. You can't change any of this, you have to live with it. Is that funny or sad? You know that it is both and neither. Once again, and as always, that is the point. Get up, begin, make your way from the bed to the shower. Remember that this is the hardest thing you will do all day.